Futurama comic, issue 66. Fry tells Bender to help put out the dip because people are gonna be here for game night any minute. Since when does he have a game night? Bender says something that doesn't even make sense for someone as evil as him because we never see him participate in games where that kind of violence happens, and we've always seen him be a coward when it gets right down to it. He says the game night sounds boring for no reason, and Fry introduces his ungrateful, judgmental friends to his first annual 20th century game night. I guess I'm gonna feel sorry for him because the series has an unhealthy addiction to comedic sociopathy dragging all of its characters down. Amy hopes this won't be like Fry's 20th century karaoke night party, or stamp collecting party. He also had a roller skating disco prom. If he didn't invite Zoidberg to that one, why is he invited to all of the others? Leela was nice enough to bring him something, a zombie Assassin's Creed of Duty game. Fry thanks her, but says predictably that all they're gonna do is play board games. Leela is judgmental about it, and Bender tells them all to get drunk now before having to do some lame stuff. So we see Amy and Kev kissing as everyone else is bored. Fry's playing a form of Monopoly or something and is doing great, but Hermes tells him to just end this misery already, without anyone explaining why they're miserable. With friends like this, well, he doesn't really have any friends, he's just not able to accept it. Only Leela sorta counts as liking him. Fry's the only person alive who would even know how to play a board game apparently, and he says he saw the board games in the free section of a website. Gee, I wonder if there's something wrong with one of them that's going to be relevant to the plot. He wins, and the dice cup glows. Fry's told to put the cup down because he's getting mystery aura all over him. All of them get transported to another planet by the board game manufacturers from the 20th century, who modeled their planet's identity and culture after the most popular board games from that time. How could they alter the entire planet all at once? Did they take over the whole place because they're evil? Of course they're gonna be the bad guys. They're parkour masters who annoy Bender for no reason. The crew was forced to go here to compete in the annual board games. And everyone else who's here was also brought here the same way. This plot is silly. The really ridiculous part is that they'll have to engage in a death match. I guess it's because they're of a different species from the people on this planet. So the people on this planet are too racist to care about what happens to them. There's 3 life-sized game boards, and the last person standing at the end will be the winner, but the rest will get killed. Why did the 2-headed alien bother saying, if there are no further questions, if he's just gonna send everyone down a trapdoor elevator to begin the game anyways? They go down a slide. Zoidberg's got a nice outlook compared to the rest of these people. He likes sliding and spending time with his friends. Leela just makes a fool out of herself saying that they shouldn't blame Fry when this was his fault. They all have a rough landing, and Leela says they'll have to listen to Fry because he knows how to play these games. A king alien is an asshole, insisting on giving out orders himself when he clearly wouldn't know what to do. So it's good that a car falls on him. I just wish it was Leela who attacked him instead to stand up to him. It's raining household items, life-size versions of the Monopoly game pieces. Fry says he'll start buying properties and tells them to imitate him. Amy's jumping in a trash can wishing the game pieces could be jet-propelled. And Fry says she needs to pay rent, but she's out of money because she's bad with money. Then she apparently gets vaporized, but I bet she'll be fine at the end of the story. And they inexplicably lied to them, saying that teleportation was vaporization. What do they have to gain in lying to them? It's weird because this isn't a series meant for kids, and it doesn't even have continuity. So why bother keeping the main characters as plot armor? Some of them aren't even likable. The only thing I'm missing from Amy right now is her pink sweatsuit. But Leela's still a shocking jerk for not actually caring, saying that she's slutty. Especially since Leela's had plenty of boyfriends herself, and she's stuck with one guy, Kif even, for quite a long time. So how does Amy count anymore? They go to Zoidberg's inn, where Zoidberg pays people to spend time on his property because that's the only way he can get people to spend any time with him. Which is unrealistic because, well, he's adult, Fry is too, and Zoidberg's optimistic. If anything, it would be the other main characters that would have to pay people to spend time with them. I guess they would have really good reason to hate him because he's a loser, and they actually have to live through him being a terrible doctor to them, so they'd spend every day wishing he was fired. He gets vaporized, supposedly, and again, Fry and Leela look like sociopaths instead of lovable main characters. It's smart of them not to care, because they'd be better off with a good doctor, but Leela doesn't have the moral high ground then. I was sad to see that the story cut ahead to the characters all rushing to the finish line. Instead, it turns out that the one of them that has to be eliminated is the one who made the most money, even though he's the winner of the game. That wasn't foreshadowed. That's ridiculous. What's also ridiculous is that Hermes won and not Fry, the one with any experience at all. I'd like to see how he got all that money. Bender says out of nowhere that he'll save him, but then it makes sense because he just wants all of his money. Out of nowhere, Hermes' wife shows genuine loyalty to him and tells him she'll never let Bender get his money, even though she's talking to a robot, so clearly she's got no chance in a fight. So the woman who abandoned him for another man in the show gets vaporized with him because she was standing too close to him, and was apparently that loyal to him. That's just the only memorable thing about her character to me, so I can't let her live it down. She should have had more character depth then. I don't even know why I hold it against her, because Hermes is terrible. Bender gets the money, but I doubt he'll get to keep all of it. If he was smart, he'd put as much of it in his chest as possible, because how does he expect to keep the wheelbarrow? 7 tributes remain, and they have to go take a seat on a train. They go to Candyland. The players are told to not be tempted by the candy or else. Gee, I wonder if they'll somehow be stupid enough to not heed that warning on a dangerous alien planet. Fry says that in this game, each player has to draw a card to find out how many spaces forwards or backwards they go. Going backwards sounds really annoying. Candyland must suck, because I hate that in Mario Party, which is the most experience I have with board games. Somehow Farnsworth ate some of the candy and went crazy. Maybe he assumes they're all doomed anyways and wants to cut to the chase because he doesn't care anymore. Fry says the professor's teeth stuck together from the gumdrop. Somehow Scruffy found himself a soulmate in the place that made him dumb enough to refuse to finish the game. And for no reason, when he's vaporized, she doesn't get the same fate as him, even though that happened to Hermes' wife. Character deaths from idiot balls are always unacceptable. Kif picks out a black dot card, which means he's stuck on the square until he'd draw another card of the same color. Oh, so this is a really shitty game. At least the story's teaching me about Candyland, but only barely. It seems like Sonic Shuffle is a better game. I can't imagine they'd actually consider putting that card in the game. Leela says they can't leave Kif behind, but Kif says they can and plans on keeping their 2 competitors busy by attacking them in a clearly doomed fight. That was out of character. He's too much of a wimp to stand up to Zap or quit, but he does this. So he gets devoured, making me assume all of the characters had their minds backed up to a computer without being aware of it to survive all of this. Or it's all just a dream. I mean, if he was that tired of his life, he would have just quit before doing this. Fry and Leela are the only 2 players who have made it to the final level. That's such predictable writing. I have no reason to take him seriously when he says Leela and him are gonna work together for the rest of the game. Bender shows up and for some reason they're surprised he's still alive. They'll get sent somewhere else and get told that since they've chosen to link their fates together, they're both gonna be crowned the winners of the games. Very predictably, all of their friends were just teleported away, not vaporized, and in fact, it was so lighthearted that they actually got to watch the games with the rest of the aliens for no reason. For no reason they're gonna get punished for being the winners. They're gonna get fed to a monster made of board game parts. At least that's a creative design for it. They let them watch to be nice to them, so why would they be mean to them by making them watch this? Leela makes sure the 2-headed alien gets thrown off his UFO successfully, because I guess he can't move the thing he's standing on to dodge her predictable attack. He gets eaten, and Fry and Leela high-five and say Yahtzee, when only Fry would know that reference. She must have been told about that by Fry. They take the risk of doing this instead of running away, and they don't run away from the monster after the Monopoly guy starts talking either, when they have no reason to assume it won't go back to trying to kill them. And it doesn't, because its hunger has been satisfied. They only hold the games to feed it for the year. How would it only need to eat once a year? The bigger a creature is, the more food it needs. Why don't they use a large ray on a food, or genetically engineer fruit to be super big for the creature? Bender points out that actually they all got 2 years apiece, but it wouldn't be 2 years. It'd be slightly more than 1 year. But while the aliens had 2 heads, he didn't have 2 of everything else. But the Monopoly guy is as stupid as Bender, so he agrees, and decides to warp the protagonist back home. As I wonder why the aliens don't just let the monster golem starve to death instead of constantly sending aliens to their deaths in elaborate, expensive games to beat it. Is the golem a religious idol of theirs? Why else would they care about it? It must have been made. So why was it made? Oh, for the spectacle? Why would they think anyone would want to see eat people? Why not just entertain people with television? Why even... Well, I guess they make money off televising these elaborate games, so that's why they go through all this trouble instead of just throwing death row inmates at the monster. But they really should do that instead of just sending innocent people to the monster. How has that not been the case? And somehow, Scruffy didn't get back and is still in Hasbronia, even though we clearly saw him get surrounded by the teleportation field. Futurama comic, issue 67. Zoidberg wishes he could eat the fish off the holographic menu, and he's told by Farnsworth to order already. He orders free bread, being surprisingly smart enough to not expect them to pay for his food if he orders a huge amount of it, which was the obvious problem with taking a glutton to a restaurant. Farnsworth says he's invited his crew to the seafood restaurant to show off a ring he invented that exists in all time periods simultaneously, which is taken advantage of because as soon as he thought about inventing it, it appeared because it already existed, despite him not taking the action to make it somehow. Why did he invite them here to show it off instead of showing off his invention at home as usual? He just wanted an excuse to go to the restaurant. Zoidberg wanted one of the calamari rings, and for no reason he doesn't look at the quantum ring while pulling it towards him and eating it. Surprisingly, because he ate it, he gets warped to the past instead of the ring simply getting damaged by his stomach acid. So he sees the young Farnsworth who just opened Planet Express offices. And for some reason people are dressed in more old-fashioned ways, even though there's still robots in the street. Farnsworth says computer screen on to turn on the computer, and it responds to him and is worried about the first ever delivery, and it should be. Because Farnsworth didn't bother telling his crew the password for safe passage through the Torturebot planet right away. So Zoidberg turns off the computer because he accidentally cut the power while reaching for the sandwich in the owl trap. He blames Bender, and then blames Fry as he warps to when he first met Fry. Because of what he said, Fry wonders if he's okay. Somehow he's still scared of seeing Fry even long after he first met him and saw him like this. He must have been his first actual human patient if he's surprised at seeing that. Zoidberg returns to the present, where apparently nobody's immediately caught on and figured out what happened to the ring. Fry says all that was inside Bender was their wallets. Zoidberg tells them to forget about it and enjoy this free bread, which suddenly tastes like bones. He ends up in a depressing future, getting kicked by Leela for eating a bone of Fry. Zoidberg apologizes, and arbitrarily says Leela looks terrible. Zoidberg finds out he's in the year 3015, 2 years after the apocalypse, which happened after Nixon and Mom got married, which isn't plausible because Mom is an old woman. At least writers have transferred her mind into the body of a younger woman first. Nixon invited the whole city to come watch their wedding at Madison Square Garden, and Bender makes an idiot out of himself. After the shady things he witnessed him do in the series, why did he ever vote for him? Farnsworth is sad because he always wanted to marry Mom. Which reminds me of Tails. Then it cuts ahead to Zap firing lasers at robot criminals with clones of himself flying on jetpacks. Leela tells Zoidberg to run and gets him to hide in a bookstore.
Farnsworth assumes Zoidberg has post-traumatic memory loss, and it turns out Nixon only married Mom for power from each other. Still, he wouldn't marry an old lady. He'd think it was humiliating. Mom got made vice president, and Nixon became the co-owner of her company. Why couldn't they have that deal with each other without marrying? Then each one tried to kill the other, but argued over who would drink first. So they declared war on each other in front of the marriage counselor. Mom led a robot army, and Nixon cloned Zap Brannigan because he was considered to be the Earth's most decorated military hero, despite being a coward who doesn't really do the fighting himself. They ruined Earth with their war with each other. I hate bad futures as a concept. The future needs to be better to make up for the present. Bender won't help Leela because he's a general in Mom's army. Zoidberg finds out he's in the hospital, and Farnsworth apologizes and says he's been acting freaky all day, so he needs to let the doctors look at him. Zoidberg at least tries to warn him he can't let Mom marry Nixon. And Farnsworth says he asked him to never bring up Mom again, and says that Fry's just unfrozen, and he has to hide his valuables. After a huge unacceptable amount of panels are wasted on different doctors looking at Zoidberg with the same boring dialogue, eventually, the doctor magically figures out Zoidberg became unstuck in time. Fry believes Zoidberg about the future because after everything that happened to him today, he'll believe anything. Zoidberg hugs him and apologizes for a future thing, which is actually kind of funny. And then he wakes up in the future and sees Fry get defeated before Zoidberg could put a plan of his into action. Then Zoidberg ends up sitting beside Farnsworth at Mom's wedding. I don't get it. How does the ring decide which time period to bring Zoidberg to anyways? If the ring exists in all time periods at once, how does it decide which exact second for his consciousness to go to? Wouldn't he be experiencing everything at once and not be able to focus on anything? Farnsworth is next to a terrible looking creature he created, and there's no explanation for why he made it. Better yet, why did he keep it around? Zoidberg objects to the wedding and pulls out a photograph of Mom's marriage to the old professor to say she's already married, and he doesn't know where he got the photo yet. Then Zoidberg's back in the past where a hippie asks Zoidberg to make a donation to a church. Zoidberg randomly asks to become a minister and says he'll trade him his medical degree. So he instantly gets what he wants because the minister is realistically corrupt and always wanted doctors-only parking spots. Then Zoidberg finds out he's just after Fry set off on his first delivery. Farnsworth says he's so proud but assumes it'll only last a month. Zoidberg says he has to make a call, and Mom shows up and wonders why Farnsworth isn't dying. Zoidberg lied to get her to show up. He offers her drinks he made them, and they agree to drink them out of thirst. So they're happy together, not remembering why they broke up. And Zoidberg tricks them into getting dressed up for a wedding and takes a picture of them, marrying them as their minister. They somehow survived drinking a lot of everything in the medicine cabinet. So with that photo, he prevents the marriage in the future. Zoidberg lampshades how lucky he is to have this photo still, which he shouldn't have done because I might have not questioned this. He says it's a good thing he never takes off this coat and doesn't ever look in his pockets. Good thing he explains that. He is poor, so it makes sense. He does take off the coat, because he did when he fought Fry in the episode on his planet. But I guess he doesn't mean literally never. Mom says she can't wait months to kill Nixon, and somehow Mom says that wanting to kill each other is the first thing she and Nixon had in common when they'd both know they're both evil. So the predictable things happen as they leave. Zoidberg says he saved the world, but no one will know, because nobody would know that he saved the world by preventing them from marrying each other. And Fry says he knows, and says, "Congratulations, pal," and hits him on the back, which gets him to cough up the quantum ring. Oh, but it flies into Farnsworth's mouth. And this sends him back to when he was on his first date with Mom, and he dances with her to enjoy it anyways. It sure is good for the crew that he never bothered to make a clone of Mom to date her. He could change what made him not want to date her anymore, so that the clone would be perfect for him. It was interesting to see a story where we see how Futurama characters would do in life-size board games. But it should have spent all of its time in Candyland, because that's a lesser-known board game than Monopoly. So I'd have liked to know more about it. And the only thing they did with Monopoly is, like, go figure stuff about it.
It was annoying the whole time that it wasn't explained why the aliens felt like it was right to force people to go through these games, making them think they were gonna die if they failed at them for no reason. It's easy to assume that they're this callous because they hate other species, but say that so it's not arbitrary. Even then, it's too sadistic that they punish the winners of the games for some reason. That's so stupid. I guess out of jealousy. But they're doing this so people can have games to watch, and no one would want to watch that. Predictably, no one actually died and instead got warped to the audience. It'd make more sense for them to simply have the games for money and entertainment and spite. And to think, somehow all of this happened because they played a board game with Fry. This story could have been more engaging and entertaining. Instead it skips through the board game parts, not explaining why Hermes got rich because he's a bureaucrat, even though Fry's the only one with board game experience. At least I was pleasantly surprised that the board game did let both Leela and Fry win, instead of having something happen to force them to fight each other, when it wasn't foreshadowed at all that two winners would be allowed.
This intriguing story was about Zoidberg eating a quantum ring without looking because he was trying to eat edible rings at a restaurant, and constantly warping at various periods in time for no good reason. It was engaging because he had to prevent an apocalypse caused by Nixon and Mom marrying and then starting a war with each other for power. Once they decided to do that anyways, if they never loved each other and always wanted each other's assets. Eventually, Zoidberg saves the future because he went into the past, traded his medical degree to become a minister, meaning he wouldn't have had to trade it for a lawyer's degree, and tricked Mom into showing up at Farnsworth's and getting drunk and married to him in one day. So he took a photo and showed it at her wedding to Nixon, getting the marriage effortlessly cancelled. Even though the minister could have easily just assumed Mom got a divorce or annulment after that photo. No one stopped to do any research into whether they got divorced after that. The bad future was too depressing, so good thing it was prevented and Fry congratulated him and got his ring out of him. It was nice to see that Zoidberg got to save the world, because I like how optimistic he is.